So, since I was a child, I was going back and back in time, trying to remember everything that I lived since the unity.
And at the 22nd of October, I woke up in the morning and felt like it's time now, a really strong impulse. And I was like, well, okay, maybe I have to travel. And also had the feeling, I think possibly Matias will be close maybe someday. And then I had the feeling to search for unity. And on the main page I saw, oh, Matias is here at 11:11 really soon in Switzerland. You were talking yesterday at a really beautiful event here in front of 8,000 people. And listening to what you were sharing, I felt really heart touched because it kind of has an alignment with what we started this summer here. And yeah, it came up to start this project Wisdomkeepers Europe. Because we felt like there are many wisdom keepers around the world, but Europe had the greatest impact on the world of the forgetting part, also for the natives, and that we have to remember our roots here, like to take our part or to give our part. I really would love to hear what is, in your opinion, what is important for this path of remembering in Europe, and also what is our role here.
Well, yeah, Europe is, in what I know, what I remember about the planet as a living being, Europe represents the heart. And sometimes, and of course, south of Germany, Austria, Liechtenstein, Switzerland, and a part of France, and the north of Italy represents the heart of Europe. And this is something that is very weird when I tell this to the world, because usually we relate the heart with love and with compassion and with hugging each other and being more connected to the earth. And when people see how these cultures in Europe are, they say, but this is more mind, like it's not connected to the heart. But sometimes we confuse heart with emotions, which is not the same. Emotions are in the intestines. Emotions are produced in the blood on what we eat, in the hormones that are pulsing in every gland. And the heart basically is the rhythm that keeps that moving through. Is tick, tack, tick, tack. Is the pulse, the constant pulse that allows everything to move through. So it's not emotion, it's just the beat that keeps everything moving and alive. So it's not related to love or emotion. It's related to keeping the right time, the right path, and be aligned with the clock of time and space. So Europe is more about that, about connecting everything in the world and using everything that is in the world and produce something new and take it to the world and then receive it again to Europe and then produce a new thing to the world and so on. So that's why most of the biggest changes in the world had happened here in Europe and had affected all the world in different ages and different moments of history since the very beginning of humanity. Because even if humanity have started in Africa, have discovered the agriculture in Middle East, it all actually was connected in the Mediterranean Sea. It's all related to the Mediterranean and the territories of these lands. So Europe have had one of the first native people that were connected to the planet and to the expansion of humanity around the world is not just the Renaissance, Middle Ages, and religions. Is more than that, and the native people of Europe were connected to the native people of everywhere, even before there were native people in South America. So when we see Europe as it is today after the Renaissance and everything, we see Europe in a very superficial way, when actually the first keepers of the connection of the spirit on the earth were here. Like I said, the lands of Switzerland, for example, were not a German way of thinking. They were the first native of the Celtic tradition that built the first temples of stones in the middle of the mountains that connected with the power of this nature. So it was very different from what we have today. And through the ages, these native people were killed, were dominated, and it was so far away in time that we don't remember that also Europe lived this native European colonization by the people in the Mediterranean Sea. So I think that that's a story that has been untold, because we are so concerned about what happened in the past 500 years with the Americas, we forget that that also happened in Middle East, in Africa, and mainly in Europe. And to go back to take that power, instead of going 500 years ago, we have to go like 5,000 years ago, and 3,000 years ago, and to look for that power in this land. Mm.
So, what would you say, in your opinion, like what are the steps to do or to go to reconnect with this field, and that like we can activate the field, that we can all remember better together?
Well, I think the way in which Europe has been established in history is because the difference between this continent with other continents is that the territories are more delimited than in other continents. The mountains, the rivers set boundaries that are more tiny, more close to one another, and that created like holy places or sacred places related to different people that divided themselves because of the mountains and the rivers. So other parts of the world, they had very wide open territories. Like for example, Egypt, it was all desert and a river. That's it. In South America is all the rainforest or all the pampas, and that's it. United States is also so wide, so it's spread, that all the people, the population that were living there were like moving around, spreading throughout billions of hectares, that are like even without rivers. So in Europe, every territory was tiny, was an island, a valley. It was all divided in so tiny places that they had to survive not in expansion, but in ascension or going deep. So they had to develop the mind and the heart in a different way than other people. So that's why, for example, in Greece, where the islands were so tiny and they couldn't basically escape, or they were like locked in this territory, their minds needed to expand in another way. They couldn't expand in territory, so they started to expand in mind. So philosophy was born in the tiniest islands. the art was rebuilt in tiny islands or tiny valleys in Italy, in Spain. So what we have to understand from that is that something that sometimes we don't pay attention too much, because when we talk about Europe, we think about the art, the buildings, the structures, the history, but nature is delimitates holy places that are related to what happened in that land. So specific mountains, specific islands, specific rivers are talking about the energy that developed the people that were there. So to pay attention again to the tiny territories that have divided the European people, you can understand the power of that territory. Every valley, every region, every dialect that has been born in each one of the regions are related to a mountain, to a river, to a limit in the natural realm. So I would say that one of the first stages to start understanding the power of this continent is to feel, to see, to connect with the limits of these territories, with the islands, with these valleys, with these tiny countries, tiny regions, tiny villages in the middle of the mountains. So we can start understanding the power that they had in the building of our consciousness, because it's our cultures, religions, way of thinking, development is all related to the territory we live in. So the natural places that we have around are the ones that help us evolve towards something, to an idea of how we think, how we act. And when all the territories were full with people, like every little region was full with people, Europe started to expand, looking for other mountains, for other rivers, and so on, so that the empires and then the colonialism and then the world. So because of these tiny territories, it got us to the entire world. So I would say that the first step to take is to pay attention to the nature where we are born, and that nature, which were the first cultures that were settled in these territories. What was the tradition of the first people that used to live in those territories, not thinking about the countries that are today, not thinking about the religions, not thinking about the main traditions in Europe, but going at least 5,000 years ago and try to see who were living in these tiny little mountains or valleys in these regions, because they will tell exactly what was the reading of or the power of those lands. And from there, we can start to reconnect to the very origin of the power of this land, behind the empires, behind the Romans, behind the Saxons, behind all of these people that came after to colonize the territory.
Thank you. This is so beautiful, and it's also really aligned with kind of feelings we had. And there are these prophecies also, like we know there are many prophecies from natives. The Hopi, for example, say that the wisdom is kept in Switzerland. And you also said something about the mountains yesterday. And it's like that we are in the moment we are planning to go to these places, also with representatives of some natives, for example the Kogi tribe from Colombia. They were, you know them?
Yeah.
And they want to come, and we will go to these places and do spiritual work to activate this together. Yeah. So, are there some places what come up to you, like which are really important?
Yeah. Well, what you were saying about also the Hopi, Kogi, all the old traditions from North America and South America. All the people from the Americas came first from Asia, and the people from Asia got there because the Indo-Europeans divided, which were the same tribe, one's going to Russia and the other ones, well, to Siberia, and the other one's going to the Central Europe. So it's the same family that has been connecting both extremes of the world. And I think that when we take a look into the history, just 500 to 700 years, what we see is that it's very short, the perception of people coming from Europe to dominate the Americas, and because we're seeing the short picture, the small piece of the history, when actually we are the same people that has divided the groups during the glaciation, and one went to one side and the other ones to the other side, but they were the same people, the same family, and that were divided in Kazakhstan, and so that's why I think that eventually we had to meet again all together to heal the links of all this information. And the families from Europe were the first ones on waking up, let's say, because they were closer to Africa, they were closer to the origin of their tribes, and the other ones kept longer until they figure out the connection. So when they were starting to connect, the Europeans came. So it was like a crossing of history, of some going faster in one way and the other ones going slower in the other way. But eventually we all had to connect in the same point. So this healing of the people of America coming back to Europe is to try to find the oldest family tree that connects us all, that got us all as one family, and not two different worlds that are meeting. So both sides of the same family, the main thing that we were doing was following natural places, because the first thing that all humans did when we went out of Africa was to try to figure out places where we could find security, food, safety, where we could expand, reproduce, but mainly survive. So we were looking for places where we felt kept and safe. So that made us look for mainly valleys where we could feel that we were protected, or caves or stuff like that in along all the territories of the world. And that created the idea of sacred places. Like sacred places were places that were safe, secure for us, where the nature was taking care of us. So we created the idea of the totems, or the animals of power, the plants of power that were healing us, that were taking care of us. And that created also the idea of the river of power, or a lake of safety, or a mountain that was a guide, because we could see it from very far away. So we have a point of relationship, where to go, how to get there. So all these practical things that were happening in our survival things gave the spirit, awoke the spirit of the nature, making that we know that there are certain places that are more holy than others, more sacred than others. Even if everything is sacred and holy, it doesn't matter where you are. Our history with our relationship with these mountains, with these places, made them special, and created a whole path throughout the planet where we can find the sacred places. And depending on the culture, we will try to find the sacred places in different levels. Like for some people will be the mountains, for some others the trees, for some others the valleys, or the river instead of a mountain. So it depends on the geography of the place that we develop a communication with holy places. So even if I say today there are special places and these are the special places in the world or in Europe, some other people that have another relationship would say different things, because people that were expanded in the plains of Europe, we have a relationship with rivers or forest more than a mountain, like it could happen in the Mediterranean or in the south of Europe. And the Mediterranean will find more power in tiny islands than actually in the continent. So it's all related to actually the geography in which the families were divided. So I would say that, of course, there are main holy places or main sacred places where we could actually all go together and do something that connects more bigger networks. But as I said, there can be always specific and sacred places for each tribe, that they will find exactly the same amount of information in one plain than in a mountain, or like in a mountain. So it depends on the structure of the people. Even though one of the most powerful places in Europe are the Alps, and the reason why is that is because when the Mediterranean Sea was being formed and when Europe was being formed millions of years ago, the Italic Peninsula, which was before part of Africa, started to push up with all the volcanoes going up to Europe and locked a sea, an inner sea, that was a huge lake or sea in the middle of Europe that got locked because of Italy, and that created a holy sanctuarium for life that was a deep valley that encoded all the information of all the rivers in Europe going to the center of Europe, and all this information was kept in the center, like water surrounded by mountains or surrounded by valleys. So this created the energy of the heart of Europe. And then when Italy started to push up towards the north, all this sea was raised as mountains that created the Alps. So the sea that was deep in the heart of Europe became the tallest mountains of Europe. So the energy of the mother water with the mother earth on the skies is a very powerful portal that was open. That's why all the mountains along Italy, France, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Austria, and Slovenia, they are the most holy and important places of the entire continent. That's why I call it the heart of the planet. So there are many holy places in this territory because of nature and because of humanity.
Yeah, it's really interesting that sometimes like these differences of the cultures, like that this is not working anymore at one point if we start this process of remembering our past lives. Mm-hmm. Some people were asking me, but why do you have a task about the Americas? And then on the path I recognized, well, yes, one big part is my task here, like this remembering from Europe. But a friend and representative of Native Americans said to me last year, the remembering of Europe is going over the Americas. Mm-hmm. And about this reconnection. And there are these other prophecies, actually also from different tribes, around the world, and it's saying like that the Great Spirit gave us this task that we have to come together in peace. And it's also this prophecy of the Rainbow Nation. And what came in, or what I came in after Egypt was like, the time is now, like the time for the Rainbow Nation. It's happening now, like it's the prophecies, it's this time now. So what do you feel and think about that?
One of the main reasons why we these prophecies, like the Rainbow Nation is coming up today, is basically because we started to get connected again in the past 30 years, and it's because of a practical thing that we call internet. That it could be very cold to think it that way, but actually internet came here to connect us all in many different ways. Something that was very difficult and impossible in other moments, which was to make friends all over the world and to be able to connect all the people that were feeling the same, that were feeling alone in their cultures or territories, and that they found a family beyond their own culture and territories. And that started to weave something that goes beyond nations, something that goes beyond cultures and traditions and religions. Like I have friends and family and people that follows me that that doesn't even have the same tradition or religion or ideas that I have, and even though we are all connected as one today, and I think that that's the beginning of what a Rainbow Nation means. Sometimes when we receive this information in the past, we relate it to things that were happening in that time. Like, for example, the Native Americans that received the message of the rainbow people, of the Rainbow Nations around the world, they would relate it all with people living like them. So it means that, does this mean that we have to live like Native Americans in order to fulfill that dream or that prophecy? No, it means actually that they are one of those colors. And sometimes we made a mistake thinking that we have to become like other culture or become like, again, in a simplicity way of life, like people in the rainforest or in the middle of the desert, that we have to go back to that. But actually, the messages were received in a moment that's all they got. And today, we are entering an age of technology, of connectivity, of going to space, and a moment in which nations and limits, they are not that important for the actual people. They're more important for people that is still scared, but not for people that are opening their hearts to connect with humanity. So here today we have these two different realities in which there's a lot of people trying to survive within their own limits and creating their own limits to say, I want to survive, and the others that are expanding the limits. So when we talk about expanding the limits and connecting, it's not about living like another tradition or religion would say, because it's more accurate to the Rainbow Nation, for example. So is this because I've heard this thing that some people saying that Europe lost their track of what it means to be connected. But actually, if you take a look into the facts, Europe got to unify all the different countries, different religions, different points of view, with many languages as one nation that are all connected in one union. And in the Americas, we couldn't do that. It's still impossible because everyone is talking about different things and we are all fighting to each other. And And even if all the countries here were in war to each other, they got to get united and trust the borders as one. So who is actually building the rainbow bridge or the rainbow nation? Who is opening the doors for that? So we have to sometimes think that it's not just the native like in the American that has the whole truth, but all the truth needs to be together. Like it's not one or the other. Some will help us connect with earth as the others connects the mind, and both together are creating the tools. So what actually is happening is that one part from the heart connecting with the roots of the planet, and the other one, the mind, trying to find out the systems to connect every part. So both need to get together. So it's not that one is right and the other one is not. It's that we have evolved in different ways to connect different aspects of the same thing. So I think that the Rainbow Nation is happening right now in every part of the planet, but we are still trying to somehow figuring out who is right and who is wrong, which is not the point. And the point is how to put together all the tools that each one of us have discovered.
Yeah, so you were also like talking about this, that some people are living like more surviving, and the other part is expanding. And like, do you have an advice on more like a personal level how to deal with that? Maybe also the challenging times and what to do concretely, maybe.
You mean to align both sides, mind and heart, or what would you say?
Yeah, like the mind and the heart, like, and also maybe you could like put this on like more practical, you know, on like how people can take this into their lives, like what to do.
Well, one of the main things that we have to understand is that most of the things that we do in our lives are, even if we don't realize about it, they are related to survival. And the survival state is about, I don't want to die, the first thing. But the other one is, I don't want to be alone. And the other one is, I don't want to be rejected. So these main 3 points of view of survival builds up our personalities, builds up our way of being, and why we do what we do. And sometimes, in order to survive, we tend to not follow the heart or not follow the mind. So it depends on how we were educated, let's say. So because of that, we sometimes take decisions not thinking with our heart or not feeling with our mind. And we divided these 2 points of view very much, even in kind of a war. So I would say that the main thing that we have to do is to take a look into what are our survival skills. What are the things that we usually do in our life, thinking about, if I don't do it, I can die, or I can be rejected, or I can be alone. Sometimes we have a group of friends that is not because we like them or we feel fulfilled in these relationships, but because we are afraid of being alone. So what we think is not related with what we feel. Some jobs that we do also about safety. I have to keep alive, I have to keep working, otherwise I don't know what to do. And actually, when you pay attention a little bit to the world, there's a lot of people that are doing great just because they jumped into the void and did something completely unexpected. And and when you share these kind of things, people say, yeah, it's so easy to say. No, it's also easy to do. But we are afraid to do it. So there are many, many little things that we can do, like take a decision of doing, I don't know, an art activity, taking a different path to work, or open yourself to go to a different place to sit and take a coffee. This kind of little things, like open yourself to meet another person or to say no to the same people always. These tiny decisions can also create a shift in the programming of your life, opening opportunities to other things that may come. I think that every tiny decision, like what you buy, where you put your bed, how do you organize your schedule, the people you meet or you don't want to meet, the work that you do and how you do it. So these tiny things that are part of your routine, they're all connected to the survival mode. We just forgot it because we have culture, we have religion, we have many different things that is not anymore about I have to harvest because otherwise I cannot eat. But we put the survival mode in other levels, in other states. So I would say that in order to be more aligned with ourselves and try to connect more what we feel and what we think related to what we do, which is the Holy Trinity of a being, we have to start pay attention to the things that we do that actually we don't want to do it and we have no idea why we do them, but we can kind of figure out that we do them because we don't want to be alone, rejected, or we don't want to die. And when you figure out those things, the next stage is the most difficult one, which is to change them, to do it different, to make a step to say no to something, to say yes to other thing, and slowly. It's not that I would say, okay, now buy a ticket and go to India and go live there. That would be too tough, maybe, for some people. But slowly you can start programming yourself to open to new things. And if you do it with simple things in your life, your energetical pattern will open for great things in your life. And it's all about coherence. That word is the most important one. Coherence means the heritage between different parts, which means if I think something, the heritage of my thinking is I have to feel what I think. The heritage of the feeling is I have to act and do according to what I feel. So it's like grandfather, father, and the son, let's say, or grandmother, mother, and daughter. So in that way, we could say, whatever my grandmother said, now the mother is feeling and the daughter is doing. Okay, so that's the heritage. So coherence is the co-heritage that we have in between the three bodies. If we don't act according to what we feel, if we don't feel according to what we think, we don't think according to what we do, so we have a conflicted being that cannot manifest a new reality, that is constantly trapped in this loop of repeating the same things just because cannot find the inner power. So that's why when we start to think about this coherence, is if we are actually coherent with ourselves, we start to figure out that we are not in our lives. Normally we are not living coherently because we are in survival mode. And so those are the things that I would pay attention first. and start to maybe take decisions according to what we feel and what we think, and not related to the fear of being rejected.
Like, do you have or you feel something what is important to share now, like for this what we were talking about, or is there something coming up for you what you feel like this is for this moment?
Well, I think that, as I said before, we are our humanity is a process of evolution of this planet. Everything that we do is not for humanity, it's because of Earth. And we are Earth. We are cells in a planet that is evolving. And evolution is not something that stops. And evolution is not something that we have to accomplish as a goal. So it's a process of life. It's a constant thing. So there's no rush. And there's no a purpose that we have to accomplish and get there, otherwise we are not going to make it. We have been designed in our cultures to think that we have to accomplish something constantly, because that's the survival thing. We have to do this before we die. We have to do this, otherwise we die. So because mentally we have designed our lives according to that, what we are kind of doing all the time is to think, okay, how do I do it to escape this reality? How do I do it to go to another dimension? How do I do it to enlighten myself? How do I do to help humanity to find peace or harmony or whatever? And when are we going to live that, for example? Those are some of the questions that when someone starts to get into spirituality may come. But actually, evolution is the tool of the spirit. And the spirit is eternal. So evolution is a long process. And it's not a process that we do to reach something. It's a process that we do because it's life. So there is no rush. There is no an end. So the most important thing is that we concentrate ourselves in the process of discovering than actually trying to figure out how to make it happen. Because when we make peace in the world and everything is perfect, someone will say, now we need a problem. Because this is so boring. And we are not evolving. We don't have nothing to do. So someone will figure out a way to create a problem. And we all have to engage into the problem to figure out how to get out from there. And this is an eternal thing, because besides safety, security, and peace, which is all survival state, our actual spirit, what is looking is to search for beyond, to search more answers, more possibilities. And this means that we always have to get out of the comfort zone that we found out in order to figure out a new one. So I would say, don't think that we have to finish something, and to understand that we are all in the middle of the process, and nobody knows better, nobody knows more or the right way. We are all trying to figure out as we discovered in our path of evolution.
Thank you so much for this sharing, for this moment. I feel really fulfilled and kind of had the feeling that we fulfilled an appointment we did long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really happy that we could make that possible. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.